Yo guys, what's up? Ben Ababi here and welcome back to another episode. So I know plenty of you really enjoyed the first installment of the Weazel Sweat. So today we do have the second part for you. I hope you guys enjoy.
Against button, I think I'm just defending most my ace X. I'll probably fold ace deuce. Our suit here, I will mix, and so I normally just kind of RNG for this spot. I don't know if it's going to be like pure or whatever. I think we're always going to continue. I'm more likely to call ace 10, I think, with the ace of spades than I am ace 6 with the 6 of spades. With the ace of spades, just because I think we have more playability with ace 10. More cards we can continue on and do some other stuff. And then we get 3-bet, and I would imagine we're not continuing this hand. Maybe this is a mistake against a particularly aggressive player who's going to 3-bet a bit more.
Well played. They shouldn't be playing 3-bets here like this. And it's a good line. Yes, they are aggressive, so you do need to be a bit more careful. But also being like a bitch when it comes to like aggressive players and then just choosing to err on the side of like passivity is just never going to end well for you.
Yeah,
so you
exactly.
just don't want to get caught up in that mindset of like, oh, I can't do this because they're going to do this. It's just a slippery slope. The only bit of theory that I would say about that spot is because it's a paired board, you raise much more merged because you're going to have like pocket twos and like the under pair, whatever that was, a 6. So you basically just going to be raising 1/3 pot instead of 1/2 pot.
Okay.
What I would say, one thing I've noticed a little bit about watching you play is that I would stick to the sizes you have on your bet slider. If you're going to raise 50, don't scroll, because I wonder whether or not you may end up exploiting yourself a little bit, or people might notice that you're scrolling. So just as a tip, I would say just try and stick. If you're going to check raise the flop, press the 50 button and do it, and don't scroll up or down. Same with the 1/3.
Okay. Something I wanted to ask, just I folded versus open, but threes in the small blind. This is part of the reason why I wanted to sort of make a limping range when I was getting 3-bet too much for this type of hand. You know, this and some 4-5 suited and stuff, which I know can raise and call a 3-bet. But I figured because of the amount that someone is 3-betting, I thought they were 3-betting more than a theoretical sense, more than GTO, does. I was limping these type of hands so I can see more flops with them, because obviously they can hit pretty well and hit some
Yeah,
good
I
flops.
get you. The reason I just don't want to limp is because I don't want to start mixing aces and kings and ace king and ace 10 suited and limp raising jack 9 suited and stuff like this. I just don't want to get caught up in that because it's too much brain power for me. I would just open deuces as you always do. If you think people are 3-betting you too much, deuces don't perform that well anyway. They're going to be indifferent. You can just fold. Just kind of allow yourself a bit of compassion just to play. It's fine to raise and fold certain hands. That's okay.
Okay.
And you're not going to get as exploited as you think you're going to get exploited.
Yeah,
in my
yeah.
opinion. Hand after hand, mate.
I know.
No breaks.
So here, like, I'm wondering at what point do we not just jam certain hands? At what point we don't jam at stack depth? And 150, I'm never jamming. I'm probably either just clicking or calling. 127, bit awkward, but I still think I'm going to have shoves and shove ace, king, and kings. What do we think?
Definitely correct again. Okay. I think even 150, you may be able to get away with it. It's probably like around the 160 mark that you start calling.
Okay.
Just because like ace, king, you block aces and kings, right? And it's kind of fine. I don't know where the tipping point is, though. Someone in the comments can let us know about that one. I'm actually not sure.
So 10 jack here, I think just... I don't know if a range bet this. I don't think it would be a range bet, but I think like my hand is fine to do this against a potential. Obviously, he's reg, but I think he's a bit on the tighter side. So think that betting is fine. And now I have the option, I think, to just start blasting and turn this into a bluff if I want. And I think I'm gonna here. So in terms of value, I think it's a really good hand to bluff. I just don't know if it's needed. I think maybe on this slightly drier board it is. So I'm going to bet and then I'm going to hammer the shit out of the river. What do we think?
Very, very interesting one. My immediate instinct is that you're not going to do this. And the reason is because you want them to have 10s that fold. 10-9, 10-8, 10-7, 10-6, 10-5, maybe even a jack 10, maybe a king 10. So just bluffing a 10 seems a bit on the potentially risky side. If it was, let's say, like ace 10, 3, 7, I'd be much more on board by bluffing a hand like 7-6 or something like that. Blocks 2 pairs. They're going to have a load of broadways still that fold. Admittedly, in this exact situation, they are going to have broadways that fold. but this doesn't quite feel like the spot to do it. I'd rather use a hand like King 4 of hearts or
Yeah, of
something like
course,
that.
yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
I think, though, do you not think that this is the best player type to do it with, where I think by the river dependent, assuming he doesn't improve with something like ace-5 or like whatever, I think we just get infinite folds because we block. I think it's the best hand that blocks all of the strong things. So we block all the 2 pairs that you can have, like the queen 10s, we block king jack, stuff like that. And I think I think this kind of player is the type of person that we just want to try and potentially run over in that spot with that type of
I
hand.
definitely agree. I think the player type read is very, very important, very, very good. But you want them to actually fold queen 10 and ace 10 on the river. You don't want to block it. When they call the turn versus overbet, having a 10 then becomes bad because that's probably going to be the first hand that fold that doesn't block a straight.
Yeah, fair point.
Yeah.
This board here,
Voice come back, by the way.
775, go for a small c bet. And again, I don't. Now I'm in a spot on the river. I feel as though this one's kind of like indifferent. We get some ace highs to fold, but that may be it. Maybe some hands like pocket 4s, maybe some 5x, some of which should check raise. I'm gonna ball it here.
Very, very, very essential give up.
Yeah?
Yeah, because like you win versus king 10 and king jack here.
I think those bluff though. And they mainly contain a spade, so like I think when we don't have a spade, it's actually almost a better bluff in a way.
I think they've got to call all combos of king jack on the flop, actually. You only bet small, right?
Yeah, I bet quarter.
Yeah, I think they're just going to have to call all combos of king jack. By the way, have you seen the big blind?
Oh, hello, he's back. My boy.
Just thought I'd remind you. Yeah, I think they call king jack and king 10 on the flop, and you just have loads of showdown versus that region. And even though this player's on the nittier side, I think that they will call the river like a decent amount in this exact situation, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So I like the give up for sure. It's fine to like over bluff, but in some spots, and maybe this is one of them. I just have a sense that this one's not going to be folded enough, especially with your combo.
Okay, and I think is there something to be said? I don't know if you agree with me, but I've found versus me the bet check bet line, which I feel as though is quite, maybe not always value heavy, but I feel as though there's a lot of hands that you can take for value in that line. But I feel as though bet check bet line gets, for me at least, I feel as though people overcall in it.
Yeah, you've got to be cautious with that because it's hard to know whether or not that's true or not. It feels like it is. But also when you're betting 70% on the river in a lot of situations, their MDF is so like they've just got to call so often anyway that it maybe feels like you're getting hero called a lot when in reality they're probably still undercalling, honestly.
I see. With that king queen with the king of spades, do we think in terms of bluffing, what are we thinking for like 1.5x pot? I think I would choose that size and basically polarize and just have flushes
on the river.
Yeah.
So you bet 25 on the flop, check turn. I would just use B70 on the river. I would just have one sizing, because you probably are meant to have two. Yeah, bet B70 and B150 seem good, but I would probably just use one sizing on the river.
If I'm just using the one sizing, then I don't think I'm ever bluffing that hand for 70 because I think king queen's particularly bad because all I'm folding out realistically is ace high. I would assume so.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, again, theory probably are two sizes. This is not a situation in a broken node where I use two. I'll just use one.
Okay, so this one's pretty interesting. Like, I'm wondering what I want to bet with here. I'm trying to think of it like you mentioned before in terms of what's the worst hand I'm betting. And I think I'm betting some jack X.
Is that half pot? I can't see it.
Yeah, I've gone half pot. And then king on the river. So now I'm not betting a lot apart from even like 10 jack I'm not betting. So I think the worst hand I'm betting is extremely strong. If I didn't have a queen eye flush, I would almost definitely check. I think check raise here is fine. I'm going to go something like this. But I don't really know if it's good or not. But I don't like any bet less than pot. I don't think when I do bet, and I don't think I bet too often here.
Nice. So first thing is the turn sizing. I think that half pot is fine, but I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I'll let you play this hand first.
So it's hand after hand, isn't it?
It's nuts.
So this board, I think that we can do either with this hand. Again, this kind of board, I'm going big bet or check. I don't think I'm going to overbet or pot necessarily, but I do think that big bet or check is fine. If I am going... No, I probably do like pot on this board when I bet, so I'm not sure. This is probably strong enough to bet pot, to be honest. As played, check, call, and flop, check, call, and turn, and I think this might make an okay hero and river dependent. Less so on the 7. His bluffs will probably come from like queen jack, check and a snap check. Yeah, sweet.
Nice. I like 2/3 on that texture on the flop or check, and I think as played, you played your hand perfectly well.
Sweet.
So going back to the queen 3, so I think on the turn, like, so I don't think you want to bet jack 7 of clubs on the turn. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, in general, yeah. I'm thinking about opponent.
Yeah.
I just think he's always betting better hands, but yeah, agreed in general.
Sure. So if we're assuming that you're not going to bet jack 7 and you're only going to bet queen jack plus, or maybe king queen king jack with like a heart, you could probably get away with using 2/3 pot as your only sizing on the turn instead of half. Nitpicking again, I'm glad you didn't block, even though there'll be a mix between block and big. One sizing approach, 2/3 will probably be the sizing that I would choose. Can leave that where it is. On the river, king of diamonds, I agree that you definitely need a big sizing, but I think you correctly identified what happens when you have 6/4 suited or jack 10 now. You need to have a block sizing for those combos because this is a board changing river. When there's a board changing river, generally speaking, when you've doesn't really matter whether or not you polarized or hyperpolarized or kind of merged. Generally speaking, you're always going to have a small sizing. So
Okay.
that's going to be for your 2 pairs. That's going to be for some extreme flushes. A hand like ace 4 of hearts that like completely blocks the calling range, maybe. But you did go big with your combo, and I would never check the hand on the river. I think going big is the right thing to do.
Okay. And what do we think about the size in like 2x pot with that? Are you ever having that very big size like?
So the way that I'd approach this is that I know that I'm going to have a small sizing because I'm going to have the 6/4, jack 6, jack 10, and then maybe even a hand like king jack now with the king of hearts or something like that. And then I need to think about the value region, how much my value region is worth. And you do have nut flushers here. They have capped themselves. So you probably are allowed to have a monumental second sizing. And that could be anywhere between 130% pot to 3 pot or even bigger. I'm not really sure. It's just how you can figure out in game. And you don't want to have like 4 overbet sizes. You just want to have 1, you know?
Yeah.
So up to you at what point you want to leverage. Yeah, that would be my approach.
Yeah, understand. I think something that I'm definitely not doing enough is having this small size on river on boards like that, and I'm almost certainly missing value in certain spots as well.
Yes.
And I reckon against tighter regs as well, if I check like my 10 jack there and he has ace king no heart, it's just going to check back anyway. So I'm not getting the value from them owning themselves either. So I'm just straight missing value from like my 2 pairs and stuff. And I think that's a big mistake.
So always ask yourself the question. I know I'm trying to give you loads of different pieces of information. It's quite probably a bit overwhelming, but
no, it's great. Honestly, it's amazing.
Yeah, you probably, if you notice that the river changes a decent portion of the value range, i.e. when you have 2 pair and then a king comes and now they have ace queen and bigger 2 pairs and stuff, you generally will always develop a small sizing with your range from somewhere.
Okay.
So that's like the way in which you should approach it. It's quite simple.
And then, so how do we feel about in terms of, do we want to just bet our very strong? So let's say we're against someone particularly aggressive who will attack small sizings often.
Yeah.
Do we then just want to, you know, potentially just bet a lot more of our stronger hands in that smaller size?
You want to mix them in, yeah. And this is where it becomes quite murky because, like, of course, within like your nutted region, you are then going to have to develop some protection / smaller sizes because then when you bet small, your small size isn't capped. Honestly, like in those situations, what you can do is something really simple is you can just be like, okay, I've got a nut flush here or a queen eye flush or a king eye flush. I'm going to bet the small sizing 20% of the time. And then I'm going to use the big size in the rest. as a way of having it in your range sometimes. That's a very lazy and simplified way of doing it.
Yeah.
Or if you want to be a bit more kind of like, let's say, scientific about it, you could say, when I have the king high flush here, because I block like hands like king queen and king jack, I'll always use the small sizing because I'm blocking the calls too heavily. And then now I'm not going to call ace jack versus 3-pot.
Okay. Oh shit, I'm not even on the right hand. 6 flop sets, Ben.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna go for a bigger size than usual, I think, on this board. I remember we talked about a spot yesterday. Maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but I think on this board, my range, I'm not really raising like ace 9, ace 10, I don't think. So I'm pretty polar with raising. I'm going with 2 pairs plus. So I think big sizing and then balancing that with like 7, 8 and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're really well played. Yeah, correct. You probably could stretch it to ace jack and maybe even the occasional ace 10.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. For the most part, you're going pretty polarized on this flop. You're not like check raising pocket sevens, really. I don't think you'll be check raising some bottom pair, but that's like because you're blocking value hands and that kind of thing. So yeah, I like your line a lot.
Okay.
I don't know if you realize, Mark, we played for a whole hour just then.
No, I just checked about 10 minutes ago and I was like, yeah, this is. I mean, it's good. It's good content, and it's really helpful for me as well, identifying leaks, because I'm pretty lazy with studying and generally just trying to improve. So it's a win-win if you ask me. Apart from at the tables, but that's just because I got unlucky.
I guess what I would ask you is like, what do you like? This obviously isn't a coaching session, but what are you taking away from the sweat? Like, what are there a couple things, or is there 1 or 2 things that you might be focusing on after you finish?
I don't know. It's hard to sort of answer. More just I think that I've been pretty lazy and just sort of, I don't know how to describe it, but I've just been kind of like had like tunnel vision in the way that I'm playing, and just because I understand the game very well from just so much experience at playing.
Yeah.
And I've just been pretty, yeah, like I say, just had this like tunnel vision. And so the way you've explained some hands of saying, okay, what's the worst hand we're betting here? Build our range around that. It's going to make it easier, I think, for me with sizes. So I do look at solvers and stuff like that, and I can understand why a solver might choose a sizing and extrapolate from there what I should be doing. But understanding it in a slightly different way of being like, okay, what's the worst hand we're doing? Let's build our range and our size from that hand kind of thing, from the bottom of our range or from the top, is just going to give me a different perspective where I can, I think, even more deeply into hands, I think. So very, very beneficial for me, I think, for sure.
Good. I think the only thing I'd like leave you with is just like super simple, is just like be curious. Like be curious about like how you're playing hands, what options are available to you. And like it's a blessing and a curse having played for as many years as like me or you have played. Because like you just think that like autopilot is like your baseline game is good enough, but actually like there's so much more edge to be had. So just like keep curious and like you will just be able to like extrapolate all that stuff we talked about.
For sure. The only thing that makes it difficult with that, I think, is the like streaming and creating content and stuff like that, just because
yeah, true.
It's kind of, I have the content side as well. People just think, I stream and then that's it, but there's a lot behind the scenes, especially with like YouTube and stuff. At the minute, I'm editing all my own videos just because I kind of prefer it that way. So the time for studying and actually actual reflection on hands and stuff like that is limited. / I'm just being lazy kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah, I feel you completely.
But things like this, doing things like this, I genuinely enjoy it, and it is really beneficial for me, and it's kind of like reigniting a spark, if you will, of wanting to get better, at the game.
Yeah, for sure. That's sick. Well, I really hope people are able to take some stuff away from this, and if people do want to see more of videos type like this, whether or not it's Mark or other streamers, if you have any other suggestions, definitely let me know in the comments, and we will absolutely make it happen. But yeah, cheers a lot. Thanks a lot, Mark. Really appreciate you coming on. So that's going to do it for part 2. We actually do have a very small, maybe 15-minute part 3. So if you would like to see that, let me know in the comments below. But until next time, take care, and I'll see you at the tables.